Well, hi. Good afternoon. Everybody out there still? Like Sean said, my name is Ann Merrifield, and I'm the Director of Business Development for Columbia College. It's our honor to be a sponsor of this hashtag boom, as Jimmy Fallon would say. So first, I have to just make a couple of quick comments before I move on to my introduction. First of all, Brian Simpson, I don't know if you're still here, but I do want to say that I agree with you when you say that Missouri is awesome, and I'd also like to say that you are as well. I was very impressed with what Brian had to say today. And so I still use like this antiquated thing that's called Facebook. And just as Brian was speaking, and he was talking about how sometimes you just kind of got to go for it and take the chance, and you know, sometimes you may, but it's worth the risk. So this thing pops up on Facebook, and I just wanted to read it because I thought it was just so appropriate to what he was saying. It's a terrible thing, I think, in life to wait until you're ready. I have this feeling now that actually no one is ever ready to do anything. There's almost no such thing as ready. There is only now. And you may as well do it now. Generally speaking, now is as good a time as any. So I thought that was a good message to kind of go along with what Brian and what this whole day is about. So at Columbia College, we are excited to announce that not only are we offering a new music degree this fall, but we're also proud to offer a new major and a new minor in entrepreneurship. And those programs will be available starting August of 2014. I'd also like to put in a plug for a couple of other events. We'd like to invite each of you to join us on our beautiful and historic campus on March 20th for the second annual TREP Takeover. These flyers are out there on our booth, and they were also sitting on your table today at lunch. This TREP Takeover is presented by the Fishman Center for Entrepreneurship. It's an evening that's highlighting national experts in the field of entrepreneurship. It's free, and it's open to the public. Flyers, like I said, are out there on the table if you want more information. Last year's event reached more than 1 million Twitter users, so you don't want to miss it. I'd also like to point out that in the brochure of today's event, we're also excited to be hosting the Boom Pitch competition that will be happening on April the 11th. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that and to get signed up for that competition, please do so. Columbia College was founded in 1851, and it was originally an all-female school called Christian College. It's a private, nonprofit institution that's based right here in Columbia, Missouri. We have a traditional day campus with extraordinary academic opportunities and nationally known sports programs. Many of you may not know that along with our Columbia campus, we also have 35 campuses nationwide, including one in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and 18 on military bases. We have an active evening campus as well as a robust online program. Columbia College serves over 30,000 students annually, and we offer bachelor's and master's program. Please do stop by our booth if you haven't done so already if you want more information, because we sure would love to have you join us. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Michael Morey, who is the president and CEO of Bluebird Network. Bluebird Network, headquartered in Columbia, Missouri, was formed by integrating 3 companies: Bluebird Media, Missouri Network Alliance, and Illinois Network Alliance. This integration created a leading Missouri and Illinois telecommunications company that provides over 6,000 miles of high-speed broadband and fiber optic connections to Midwest communities. His full bio, and very impressive bio, I might add, is included in your program. But for now, if you would please join me in welcoming Michael Morey.
Well, thank you to all of you who decided to stay here after break late in the afternoon. So hopefully this will be worth your while. Ann, you mentioned, you had a quote you mentioned a second ago, which I have a kind of a parallel thing that I live by, which is, why put off till tomorrow what you can just as easily do today? And many times in business, entrepreneurism, and getting things started, that's kind of a tenet that I focus on. So it's great to see all of you that are here, because you're not putting off till tomorrow what you could just as easily be doing today, which is figuring out, how do I get into an entrepreneurial environment? How do I make something happen myself? And you're going out and you're learning what's necessary, or learning things that can help you get that way. My presentation here, we're going to basically, I'm going to talk about Bluebird Network, but I'm going to try to relate what we're doing in our company to things that you folks as young entrepreneurs may be able to take and apply in what you're doing. And also to see a success story, a business that started brand new here in Columbia in 2009 and is extremely successful, over $30 million already in revenue, over $5 million in profit. So it can be done. So this is kind of a success story, maybe some advice, maybe some thoughts for what they're worth. So with that, let's talk about Bluebird Network. And Bluebird Network was founded here in Columbia. It was started as a company called Bluebird Media. And it was founded in 2009 by four gentlemen. A gentleman named Otto O'Malley, who's a real estate entrepreneur here in town. Greg Johnson, a lobbyist who actually happens to be here in the audience. Greg, you want to put your hand up here? So he's one of the very fortunate people that got involved in this early on. And two other gentlemen, Tatum and Chris Martin. And basically, they put several $100,000 of seed money into this company back in 2009. And they had a vision. And I think every business, I mean, you know, I think that there are two big things. You need money and a vision. And hopefully those two come together and create something. And the vision that they had was to combine a knowledge of government funding with telecommunications experience and win a federal grant and build a fiber optic network to serve underserved areas of Missouri. And so you know, that was kind of their vision. That was, they said, let's go put this thing together. And let's... Another part of this is I know Otto O'Malley, he's a real estate guy. And so he said, how do I take the knowledge that I already have and apply it to this new business? So he said, well, what do I know? I know real estate. And I know with real estate, what you do is you go out and you get an anchor tenant. You get some people that sign up for your building. And then you go get some financing. And then you go build that building, get 40 or 50% of the thing filled. And then that's what gets it started. Then you go out and get more tenants, and then you grow it and you make more and more money. Well, he said, that's just like telecommunications, right? I go out and get some financing. Maybe I get a federal grant. I go out and get some customers, maybe AT&T, maybe Verizon, maybe Sprint, right? And I go build this network, and I get enough of business up front to kind of finance that network, and then I start adding more sales onto it so that I make more and more and more money every year. I know how to do that. And by the way, if I'm an entrepreneur, I think to myself, what do I know that I can use already to leverage into whatever that business is that I want to go start? Because when you're talking to people about financing, when you're talking about people getting money, they don't want to put money in something where you don't know what you're doing. They want to put money in something that you know what you're doing. So you got to figure out how to take what you're doing and make it seem like you already know what it is you're trying to start. Add a vision, add an idea, and away you go. And that's what they did. So they put this idea together, and guess what? They went out and they got a federal grant for $45 million to go do this. Crazy, okay? I wasn't involved at the time. I'm impressed as all hell. And then they got the state of Missouri to match it with $11.5 million. Again, crazy, okay? But they sold the idea. They got the governor of the state of Missouri to say, this is a great idea. We need to get more internet. We need to get more fiber. We need to go a bit more bandwidth out into rural areas. How can you not be in favor of that, right? I mean, everybody's in favor of that. So you got this vision, you got this idea, you got this experience, you got this money. And then they said, okay, the next piece is now I've got my financing, I've got my funding, got my vision. What do I do next? Well, they said, I need to go get a company that exists. Instead of starting from scratch, I'm going to go find a company that exists, and I'm going to merge this concept and vision with that company that exists so that I can accelerate the success of that business. So they went out and found this company called Missouri Network Alliance, which is a very successful communications business here in Missouri. And they said, hey, guys, we're about to build this fiber optic network. We've got this funding, we've got this financing, but you know what we'd rather do? Rather than building this from scratch, you know what we do? Let's just merge these two companies, and we'll use all your experience, and we'll use all of this funding that we just got, and we'll go build it up. And then, oh, by the way, Missouri Network Alliance was hooked up with another company called Illinois Network Alliance over in Illinois, and we put all these things together, and once you have all this together, they said, well, let's go get some more money. So they pick up the phone, and once you've got all this financing and all this money and all this stuff, banks start loving you. And whether it's a bank or it's a venture capital firm or whether it's a private equity firm, Once you have all this put together, it's already successful from their perspective. They all want to jump on board. There's nothing wrong with getting on board with something successful. So they went to banks and they found a bank. They talked to a number of banks, but the one with the best deal was called CoBank. It used to be called Farm Credit Bureau because they're all into rural stuff. And they got a bank loan of over $30 million. And voila, you've got a company. So, and I know it's crazy that somebody can put this all together, but by the way, if you've got some vision, and by the way, the people they merged with, these are 25 rural telephone companies that had established those other companies called Missouri Network Alliance and Illinois Network Alliance. And those 25 rural telephone companies, all of them between 50 and 100 years old, combined with this entrepreneurial startup to create this company called Bluebird Network. I got to tell you, I'm thrilled to be working for them. I'm amazed at what they pulled off. This is a 6,500-mile fiber optic network that was formed and built by these companies. So in 2009, we had this much, 0. And in 2014, we have 6,500 miles of fiber optic network. You might have seen them building this if you've been driving up and down the freeways or the streets of the state of Missouri or the state of Illinois over the last few years. You've probably seen gobs of these fiber optic trenches being built. You might have seen a bunch of these buildings being built all over the state. This is all part of this startup. And by the way, here's another fun part. This concept of this statewide funded network where you got these rural telephone companies to come together to build a 6,500 miles of fiber optic network, this same idea was done all over the country. And so this, you see up in this is a map that combines all of these statewide rural telephone networks in a national network. And Bluebird got together with all these other people, and we created a company called Inditel, and so now we can carry 100 gigabits of traffic from Missouri or Illinois to Montana or to North Carolina. And all of this started from a vision and an idea in 2009. You can accomplish a lot in Columbia, okay, in a short period of time. Now, what is it we do? For those of you who are interested, we focus, because we are very, very large communications connections, we're really not like telephone lines and DSL internet or cable internet. We focus on very, very large connections. We sell to communications carriers. We sell to hospitals. We sell to school districts. We sell to the state of Missouri, government entities, very, very large companies. That's who we sell to. Probably every single person in this room uses Bluebird Network, and you don't even know it though, okay? Because we sell to all the big telephone companies. So any place outside of the main areas of, say, St. Louis or Kansas City or Chicago, by the way, everybody in here uses cell phones, right? Okay? And probably you use US Cellular, or you use Sprint, or you use Verizon, or you use AT&T, or you use T-Mobile. And when you pick that phone up, you go to a tower, a cell tower somewhere near you. That cell tower has to be connected to the rest of the network somehow, some way. So in many parts of the state of Missouri and Illinois, over 50% of those cell towers are connected to that network that I showed you up there. So every one of you probably today use Bluebird Network and didn't know you were using it. I don't know if this location is served by a Bluebird Network tower, but it might be. So that's what we do as a business. Here are some of our statistics. 2012, our revenues were $25.6 million. We're in the Inc. 5000 is the 3,600 and, oops, what just happened? Okay, the 3,699th fastest growing company in the nation. We're the 42nd fastest growing private company in Missouri, and we're the 95th fastest growing telephone company in the nation. We were just a teeny tiny bit, a few $100,000 under $30 million in revenue in 2013. We made over $5 million in profit, not like pretend money, cash flow. We actually had to report this to Uncle Sam and pay taxes on it. We have network assets in excess of $150 million. And again, started in 2009 with how much in assets? This much. And this company now has over $150 million in assets. So. And so the question is okay, that's really neat. Love to be you. I'd actually love to be Greg Johnson back there in the back. But I work for these guys. I don't own any of this. But what are the lessons that I could learn from this that I could apply to myself so that I could be successful as an entrepreneur going forward? And I have 2 slides up here I'm going to talk about. One is lessons you can learn from the company Bluebird Network itself that you could apply. The next one is more lessons that you can learn from me and my experience, because I came into Bluebird Network after it was successful. But I have I've started companies, I've gone out and raised money, I've done all that before. So I'm going to give you some lessons that I learned from my experience and see if you can use those as well. So first of all, I know everybody really thinks it's about the idea. I've got this really neat idea, and I can make $1 million with it, and I can go get funding, and I can do all this. I hate to tell you, lots of people have ideas, okay? It's not about the idea. Yeah, you need one, but as I put up here, not so much about the idea. It's really more about the dollars. Where are you going to get the dollars to fund your idea, and how does your vision that you came up with make money from that investment? So, when I was younger, I really always thinking about the idea, right? It was only later that I realized it's only about the money. Hell, I can go find out. I'll tell you what, if I have money, I can go out in this hallway, talk to all of you out here. I'll have 15 ideas that I could turn into money within about 15 minutes, right? So it's really not about the idea, because you can find ideas any place. It's about the money. Also, something else you can learn from Bluebird is don't forget about government sources when seeking funding. There's a lot of money out there. People think about venture capitalists, the normal suspects, seed capital, venture capitalists. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of money out there in the government space. And there are a lot, so don't forget about that. That's something you can learn. And remember, Bluebird got $45 million in federal funding, $10.5 million in state funding. And oh, by the way, even though we're successful, do you know that we still look for funding from the state, from government entities? We're still out there looking for more. And then the last lesson that I think you can learn from Bluebird is combining a startup with an existing company will increase your chance of success and accelerating that success. I've done several startups before this. The first startup I did not combine with an existing company. By the way, that one was not successful. The second one I did combine with an existing company. I went out and when we started the whole idea, we got the concept, the people who did the seed funding for me, we went out and one of the first things we did was we bought an existing company to merge with our idea, and it accelerated the idea much more quickly. Bluebird Network is kind of an example of that same thing on steroids, right? Because they went out and got themselves a company that would allow them to become a $30 million company within 3 or 4 years. So think about, maybe you've got this idea, maybe you have a source of funding, but if you can figure out a way to take an idea and a source of funding and put it together with something that's existing, with a customer base that maybe has some employees, that maybe can help pay you a salary so you don't have to give up your house while you're starting the company or something, that's a home run, okay? So think about that. But I think those are probably the 3 lessons that I would get out of Bluebird that are the main ones. Now, let's go to my second one. These are personal lessons kind of from me and my experience. So I'm big about not just jumping into the fray. I'm big about learning from the people who know how to do this. So I'm in telecommunications right now, okay? So who's been, well, okay, back when I started in 1982, because I'm an old guy, back in 1982, AT&T was all together in one big company. It was the largest telecommunications company in the world in 1982. So I went to go work for AT&T, and guess what? I learned all about telecommunications. There are very few people in telecom that can outdo me in terms of knowledge, and it started right there with AT&T. I didn't just decide, get out of college and say, I'm going to go do a telecom company, right? I'm going to go get some fundraising. Hell, I didn't know anything about telecom, right? So I'm not saying you have to go spend 13 years with AT&T, because that was way too long. I almost want to shoot my brains out after that much time. But go out and I'm serious. It was terrible. But I learned a lot, okay? And so that was my first 13 years. And if you're going to get into something, don't just jump into it. Maybe if you want to do software, for instance, go work for a software company for 2 or 3 years. go work for the best software company in the world for 2 or 3 years. Then go try and jump out and start something. Get some experience, learn about the industry, the thing you want to get in from the experts. My personal recommendation, okay? Second personal recommendation, learn your industry from the experts. Learn how to be an entrepreneur from the experts, okay? There are serial entrepreneurs. There are people that have done this before, and they know the ropes. Put your arm around them. Go work for somebody who has started companies before. So go work for the biggest in the industry for 2 or 3 years. Go work for somebody who's a serial entrepreneur for 2 or 3 years. They can teach you how to raise money. They can teach you how to put together business plans. They can teach you how to execute on business plans. Maybe even more importantly, they can teach you how to sell stuff. Because by the way, no business plan happens without sales. I didn't put it up here on my personal lessons, but if you don't think of yourself as a salesperson, if you're that person that says, oh, I'll never be a salesperson, just get out of entrepreneurialism right now, because you are going to be a salesperson, okay? If you need to be proud of being a salesperson. If you're not selling your idea, you're selling your business plan, you're selling your product, you're selling your spouse on mortgaging the house, whatever it is, but you're going to be a salesperson. So my next lesson is learn fundraising from the experts, okay? I didn't, so I went out, I learned from AT&T. I went out and I worked for several companies that were starting up right from scratch. A company called Lightwave, which is a brand new telephone company out in the West Coast when I started. And I also worked for a company that started here in St. Louis called NuVox. It was called Gabriel. At one point, I became an officer of NuVox, and I learned from those folks. And I then learned not just how to start a company, but I learned how to raise money. I mean, the experience I had with NuVox going out to New York and pitching to Goldman Sachs, or going to the Silicon Valley and pitching to venture capitalists from the Silicon Valley, or Solon Smith Barney, or half those companies that don't exist anymore, Lehman Brothers, and going out and pitching them and competing against the other people for funds, incredible. And by the way, venture capitalists. So the typical sources, if you don't get government money, you start with seed funding, then you get to a venture capitalist. Choose your venture capitalist, the first one you get in bed with, very, very, very wisely, because they're the ones that are going to teach you how to raise money. And if you choose your first venture capitalist not wisely, 2 things are going to happen. Number one, they're going to own you. They're going to own your company, okay, and you're never going to make a dime out of it. It's the first thing that's going to happen. By the way, that's going to happen with any venture capitalist you get in bed with, okay? But even worse, okay, if you choose wrong, you won't learn anything from having given them your company. And that's the worst, because you got to learn how to raise money. I was very, very fortunate. I got my first business that I went out to, I got 2 term sheets. It was back in the heyday. I got 2 $50 million term sheets, one from Battery Ventures and one from a company called Great Hill Partners. And both of them took the time to help me go raise money from other people. They taught me how to do it. They took me to Silicon Valley. They took me to Boston. They took me to all these places. They pumped me up, and then sent me out and made me look good. And if I had chosen the wrong venture capitalist, I would not have only lost my company, which, by the way, remember I told you that first one that I didn't go so well? I would not have learned enough so that later on in life I could be, running some successful company like Bluebird Network. So that's the other thing. And then the next point I have here is, a lot of people want to go out and get lots of education, okay? And I think it's okay to go out and get an MBA. I have one. A lot of people that I deal with have them. I think it's great to go out and get educated, but you really need to think about you really need to get a PhD, but not from a college, and I hope there are not a bunch of people looking for doctorates here in the audience. But I think that it's about, getting real life experience is really what your PhD. My wife, who went through hell as I was going through business startups and raising money and maybe not making as much money as I could have at certain points in our life, she looked at me and she said, dear, it's like getting your PhD. And it really was. But I was choosing wisely. Like I said, I chose the right venture capitalists, etc. And then the last bit of advice I have is it's okay to let the other guy start it, okay? I will tell you that I'm probably the happiest I have been in a startup business right now at Bluebird Network, okay? I did not start this, okay? Greg Johnson back there was one of the people who started it. I did not start it, okay? And it's very, very fulfilling for me to be involved in this organization. They got it started, but then I got involved, took all of my expertise, and helped them make it even more successful. And it's just as cool to do that as it to start one from scratch. But guess what? You get paid a salary if you get with one that's already going, okay? You make more money, okay? I guarantee you make more money. And so there's so many benefits to doing that. So again, and then, you know, so don't think you have to start something. It's okay to jump in with an entrepreneurial organization that's already going. It can be very, very rewarding. So I think that's about probably as much of my wisdom as you can take for this afternoon. What questions do you have for me?
Hello. Okay. Cole Oxley from Lynn State Technical College. I have a two-part question. My first question is, when you were showing the map of the fiber optics, you had a lot in Missouri and Illinois. Is that because maybe you had them longer, or is this for some special other reason?
When you say a lot, I mean, I'm not sure I understand the question. Meaning, we had a lot in Missouri and Illinois.
And more than the other states.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Because if you, and I guess I can't go back to the map, but if we could. There we go. Oh, go for it. There we go. So the company started, remember, Missouri Network Alliance. That company, I mean, there's three companies that came together: Bluebird Media, Missouri Network Alliance, and Illinois Network Alliance. Missouri Network Alliance was a company that was started by 15 rural telephone companies in Missouri. And their whole plan when they started back in 1999 was to combine those 15 companies together and tie themselves to St. Louis and Kansas City. Illinois Network Alliance started with 10 rural companies in Illinois wanting to tie themselves to St. Louis and Chicago. So that's why they started essentially 25 locations tied to 3. And then they started selling to other companies like AT&T, like Verizon, like Sprint, like Charter, like any company that you can name, et cetera. And the whole concept is physical fiber. So it's very expensive to build physical fiber. You want to tie that physical fiber together. So we're slowly branching out, but you won't see us doing California, for instance. It's too far away. You might, we add fiber all the time in different spots, but it's going to be edging out over time. Does that answer your question?
My second question was, I noticed how you had every state around Kentucky except for Kentucky, so I didn't know if there was a special reason for that.
You didn't notice. We do have a Kentucky thing, and I think you can't quite see that, but that little city right there is in Kentucky.
Because on the map, every other state was blue, so I
no. So if you look at that, the next slide here, let's go to this next one here, okay? Where's my, hold on a second, let me find my national map here. So the reason Kentucky is like this, so there is not, so remember I told you Bluebird, Illinois Network Alliance, Missouri Network Alliance, these are companies that started based upon a state basis, right? There is not a statewide business that started in Kentucky that formed one of these statewide companies. It's actually a vacant thing. So if you wanted to go out, here's an idea, by the way, for anybody in the room that wants to do it, okay? Go find all the rural telephone companies in Kentucky, get them all to pitch in $1 million each, okay? Build a fiber optic network to tie all of the rural telephone companies in Kentucky to the main locations that they hand off their internet and their long distance traffic, okay? I don't know what, Lexington, I don't really know which locations they hand up. Lexington, maybe St. Louis, right? And you can probably start a company just like Illinois Network Alliance or Missouri Network Alliance. And hey, if you get a federal grant to do it, you're really in good shape. So that's really why it's blank. It's just that there's not a statewide organization. I will tell you something. I have sat around thinking that Bluebird Network should go start that company. So if any of you guys have $100 million extra laying around and want to go do it, we'd probably partner with you.
Michael Morey, thank you so very much for joining us. If you all have additional questions, because we're running short on time, I would encourage you guys to reach out to Michael. He'll be in the back of the room, answer any additional questions. Michael Morey from Bluebird Network, thank you so much.